Well, shalom everybody. Today I want to talk to you about the feasts of Israel. In particular, I want to talk to you about Shavuot, the Feast of Weeks. I want to look at the biblical, the Rabbinic, and the Messianic perspective as some kind of an overview. So, first of all, it's important to understand that the Feast of the Lord in Leviticus 23 all have a prophetic fulfillment in the redemptive career of Yeshua the Messiah. There's the spring festivals, Passover, then unleavened bread, then first fruits, then Shavuot, the Feast of Weeks. And then the fall festivals, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot, or Tabernacles. And they all fall in order on the Jewish calendar, all in chapter 23 of Leviticus. They're also in other passages of the Torah, but that's where you find them in chronological order, which is important because they all point to a specific event in the career of the Messiah, the Messianic fulfillment of the feasts of the Lord. If we follow the order on the calendar, is simple. Passover, fulfilled by the death of Messiah. Unleavened bread, fulfilled by the sinlessness of Messiah's death. First fruits, fulfilled by the resurrection of the Messiah. And Shavuot, fulfilled by the birth of the body of Messiah, the church. Then the fall feast, Rosh Hashanah, the regathering of the saints. Yom Kippur, the great tribulation, or the time of Jacob's trouble. And Sukkot, tabernacles, the millennial kingdom, when God in the flesh will dwell with his people. So that's how you look at them. It's quite beautiful when you see they all fit together. The main scripture reference for Shavuot is Leviticus 23, 15 through 21. I just want to read the first few verses. You shall also count for yourselves from the day after the Sabbath, from the day when you brought in the sheaf of the wave offering, there shall be 7 complete Sabbaths. You shall count 50 days to the day after the 7th Sabbath. Then you shall present a new grain offering to the Lord. You shall bring in from your dwelling places 2 loaves of bread for a wave offering made of 2/10 of an ephah. They shall be of a fine flour, baked with leaven at first, as first fruits of the Lord. We learned quite a few things from that passage, and that's what I want to unpack a little bit for us today. What it meant back then, what it means to the Jewish people today, and what it means to us as believers, followers of Yeshua the Messiah. So let's look at some observations. Shavuot is the 4th and last of the spring festivals. It is known as Hag HaShavuot, Exodus 34:22, Deuteronomy 16:10, or Hag HaKatzir, the Feast of Harvest. It is called the Feast of Weeks because it took place 7 weeks plus 1 day after Pesach, or Passover. 7 weeks, 49 days, plus 1 day equals 50 days. 7 weeks plus 1 day, 50 days. The English word Pentecost comes from the Greek word Pentekoste, meaning 50th. 50. 50th. It was back then a 1-day festival and the only one requiring 2 loaves of leavened bread. Remember, Passover everything was unleavened. Now we come to this time when we have 2 loaves of leavened bread. Shavuot was a yearly pilgrimage, a festival that required any healthy Jewish male to come to Jerusalem. In Deuteronomy 16:16, we read about this. 3 times in all year, all your males shall appear before the Lord your God in the place which he chooses, at the Feast of Unleavened Bread, at the Feast of Weeks, Shavuot, and at the Feast of Booth, Sukkot, or Tabernacles. And they shall not appear before the Lord empty-handed. So now, let's look a little bit at a few points on the Rabbinic observance. It was a harvest festival from 515 BCE until AD 70, which is basically the destruction of the temple. Until then, farmers would bring in offerings to the temple. There was no fasting on Shavuot. And the tradition was to read the book of Ruth because there is a theme of harvest in the book of Ruth. According to the Talmud, which is a commentary on the Jewish Bible, it's the anniversary of the giving of the law on Mount Sinai on the 6th of Sivan, the first night of Shavuot, Exodus 19:1. And I quote, "In the 3rd month after the sons of Israel had gone out of the land of Egypt, on that very day they came into the wilderness of Sinai." So another tradition is that the law is studied all night long in rabbinic tradition. It's somewhat similar to the liturgy that we read on Shabbat or Pesach, Passover, because on Shavuot we also read Psalm 113 through 118, which are read in the other festivals. And the tradition is to eat dairy foods around that time. Now, where do we find Shavuot in the law of Moses in the first 5 books of the Bible, the Torah? Well, Exodus 23, 14 through 17, and 34, 22. Leviticus 23, 15 through 21, of course, when we get the details of the offerings to be presented, including the 2 leavened loaves. We'll get to that in a moment. Numbers 28, 26, 31. Deuteronomy 16, 9 through 12. And that is all the books of the Torah except for the first one, Genesis. We have mention of something about Shavuot in every single one except Genesis. Now, additionally, and that's how we connect the prophetic significance, the feast is also mentioned twice in the book of Acts. In Acts 2, 1 through 4, when the day of Pentecost had come, they were all together in one place. And suddenly there came from heaven a noise like a violent rushing wind, and it filled the whole house where they were sitting. And there appeared to them tongues as of fire, distributing themselves, and they rested on each of them. And they were all filled with the Holy Spirit, the Ruach HaKodesh, and began to speak with other tongues, as the Spirit was giving them utterance. Also in Acts 20:16, for Paul had decided to sail past Ephesus so that he would not have to spend time in Asia, for he was hurrying to be in Jerusalem, if possible, on the day of Pentecost. Remember, that's one of the feasts that Jewish male had to be in Jerusalem. So Paul was trying to get there to celebrate Pentecost. You can also read about Pentecost, a brief mention of it in 1 Corinthians 16:8. So what are the Messianic implications for the believers today? Well, in the Greek sentence, I think we need to pay attention to that. The Greek sentence in Acts starts with a definite article before day. It says, in the day of Pentecost. That indicates that the day of Pentecost was to be fulfilled by the events described in that chapter. The day of Pentecost. So it was when the day of Pentecost. Furthermore, the Greek behind the words had come has the meaning of fulfillment. So when we read had come, they were all together in one place. When the day of Pentecost had come, they were all together in one place. Another way to read this is simply when the day of Pentecost was fulfilled. Pentecost fulfilled the Feast of Week, Shavuot, was fulfilled by the birth of the body of Messiah. What Luke is trying to do here is trying to tell his audience that the events about to take place are the fulfillment of Shavuot. We find out that at that time that people were present there, they became filled with the Holy Spirit. Something that already took place in the Old Testament for periods of time, but never for good. And in the Gospels, but in this occasion, a new ministry was born. The ministry of Spirit baptism. Acts 1:5 and Acts 11:15 and 16. This would become the way that believers enter the body of Messiah, according to 1 Corinthians 12:13. And I quote, for by one Spirit we were all baptized into one body, whether Jews or Greeks, whether slaves or free, and we're all made to drink of one Spirit. So that's how we get the Jews and the Gentiles together in the body of Messiah. And that took place, Acts chapter 2, as a fulfillment of the Feast of Shavuot. Now, the Jew and Gentile concept, the 2 loaves concept is where it comes together. Shavuot is the only Jewish feast requiring 2 loaves of bread on one single tray. Why is that? They represent 2 groups, the Jews and the Gentiles. Furthermore, the loaves were to be with leaven, which is a symbol of sin in the Bible. Passover, we don't have any leaven. It's the opposite. So sinful Jews and Gentiles come together, saved by grace, through faith, in one new body, the body of Messiah, or the church. The first fruits of the Feast of Shavuot were the Jewish believers in the first century. And only Jewish believers at first, since Gentiles did not come into the picture until later in Acts chapter 10. In Ephesians chapter 3, verse 5 and 6, we read, which in other generations was not made known to the sons of men, as it has now been revealed to his holy apostles and prophets in the Spirit, to be specific that the Gentiles are fellow heirs and fellow members of the body and fellow partakers of the promise in Messiah Yeshua through the gospel. We read about it also in Ephesians 2, 11 through 16. Remember, Gentiles are partakers of the blessing, not taker-overs. So, at the end of the day, what's in it for us? I think 4 things can be derived from that. All the feast and fast of the Lord point to a specific prophetic event in the redemptive career of Yeshua the Messiah. So that is confirmation of the Messiahship of Yeshua of Nazareth. The second point, at Shavuot in Jerusalem, believers were empowered by the Holy Spirit to move forward and further the kingdom of God. So that is a confirmation of the birth of the body of Messiah. The third point is that all the feasts and fasts of the Lord occur in the same order on the Jewish calendar year after year. And that is a confirmation of the order of the last day events. And the last one is that Shavuot guarantees the rest of the calendar feasts. It's a confirmation that in the last day events, it will include the return of Messiah Yeshua. So Shavuot is a beautiful celebration, not only biblically, rabbinically, but also for us as believers. We see the birth, the fulfillment is in the birth of the body of Messiah in Acts 2, the church, but also promises that the rest of the Jewish calendar will be fulfilled with the return, with the regathering of the saints, the chastising of Israel in the day of Jacob's trouble, and the coming to faith of the remnant of Israel at the end of the tribulation, and then the beautiful apex of it all in the millennial kingdom where the Feast of Tabernacles is fulfilled. Until then, Shalom.